3 o'clock on President Paniagua's phone. We have the long-awaited committee meeting of the Finance Committee on the payroll modernization as it relates to a long-standing item on our agenda that is an agreement with Mosaic to proceed with the next steps of payroll modernization. I have with me Councilor Nave, Councilor Paniagua, myself, Councilor Jones-Rouser, and if y'all wouldn't mind introducing yourselves.
My name is Josh Syerson. I'm a project manager in the API department.
Today's the second read.
Mike Canizaro, Chief Financial Officer.
Mike Messersmith, Assistant Director of HR.
And we've got Councilor Moore. You might want to come over here so you can see the presentation.
Gotcha.
And really wanted to come together today. I'm glad that Councilor Moore is joining us, one of our new councilors. If you wouldn't mind kind of running through a brief history of where we're at, or how we got here, where we're at, and kind of the path forward. And I'm not sure who wants to take the lead, but we've been here before. But
yeah, so I think the presentation does a great job of that, of just where we started, where we are, the original objectives of the project, some of the issues we've had in our vision. So there's the agenda, project overview, objectives, our overview of our current systems, what did we accomplish in 2025, some of the challenges we're still experiencing, as well as what we would like as far as the city's vision for the next, for the new HCM. I think our ask as far as the next steps and the considerations, and then questions. Josh did a very good job preparing this PowerPoint, so I would ask, if you have some timely questions, feel free to interject, but we do have very robust appendices with kind of, project to date, current status as far as, SWC implementation. So, I think we could best answer your questions at the end. So if you could move to the next slide. So these are the overall objectives of why we're doing payroll modernization, and I'll hand it off to my colleague Mike here to go over the first bullet point.
Sure. So improved business processes and employee services. Just the first step here is a modernized payroll and human capital management system would revolutionize how we do things in the HR department and across the city as a whole. One of the things this is touching on much more than payroll. This is also something that is going to improve personnel transactions of all kinds. It's going to increase reliability and speed of changes. One quick example, if we want to change an employee's status currently under our system as it is, we need to print a screenshot of the AS400 with the employee's information, go to the copier, hand print what the changes are going to be on that piece of paper, return to the copier, scan it to our email, and then attach it to our DocuSign process to send to payroll for a change. With an actual modern human capital system, it's a few keystrokes and a click. And we have that same process completed in seconds rather than 10 to 15 minutes. And it also opens a pathway for us for employee self-maintenance of their information. So a self-service model would allow our employees to go in, make any kind of changes to their information, update addresses, make changes in open enrollment, things like that. So it really opens a path for a much more interactive and engaging and satisfying employee experience.
Thanks, Mike. And then the next bullet point, sustainable and financially responsible payroll management. So currently, we have a weekly payroll, we have a bi-weekly payroll, and then there's also the SURA payroll. I would say it's the staff experience right now that if they're getting a pay stub, it's almost they're looking at what's wrong. They're expecting that something's going to be wrong with their pay stub. We distributed W-2s late last week, and then that's all those are all the questions that are coming to the window. This is wrong because there's so much distrust with payroll in its current state. It's currently a very manual process. I brought a prop here. As you can see, this is our AS400 print screen of this is one bi-weekly payroll, and then the stack of paper on top is all of the changes that resulted in a bi-weekly payroll. With this manual process, there's obviously, it's prone to error. Someone transposing a number, adding an extra zero, which typically results in very time-consuming retro pays. Which typically fall into me. We just had 24 police officers that received a retro payment dating back to 2021 because of step and grade issues. That took probably, between my staff and myself, 40 working hours just to do 24 corrections. So ideally, in a new system, there would be a lot of efficiencies there. And then the last objective, give it to Josh.
Yeah, so I think the points so far have been basically about what our current processes function like today, but in addition to improving those, we also have kind of our eyes to the future of what can we do, what sort of impacts can we get from having improved processes. And one of those things we want to highlight here is how these tools and the data that's collected by these tools can help us better manage our workforce. And so I'll just kind of use the example of overtime costs today. When you think about we're spending a lot on overtime, it's a little hard to know exactly how to best approach that as an issue. It could be because of the number of things that we're needing to cover across the board. It could be because of scheduling issues. It could be because people are calling out sick at times that, we then have to call someone in to cover them. Could be because of the number of vacancies. Anyways, all I'm trying to say is that these tools and the data that we'll get from these tools will give us a much more, appropriate way of addressing those challenges, whether that be through, hiring or just scheduling. And these should also give us tools to improve things like compliance, across all the different departments and all the different settings. Compliance, may just have different challenges in each one of those spots. So these tools will give us a lot of, visibility into what's going on today, and then, levers that we can pull to improve those things. So moving on, this is kind of a glance back at what we've shown you before. This diagram really is...
Josh, will you go back one slide
Sure.
for one? Let me just get some language down. Okay, good.
Okay. So this is a diagram that we have shown the council before, really trying to help us wrap our heads around the systems. I know there's a bunch of acronyms that are thrown around and a lot of different software pieces going on here. So on the left-hand side is timekeeping. On the right-hand side is human capital management, which includes kind of HR tools and payroll. So what we want to try and show through this diagram is that it's a cyclical process of getting payout every single week. It takes both, good timekeeping happening on the left-hand side with systems like SWC and like Telestaff, but it also takes, having a payroll system that can, process those numbers and spit out a paycheck correctly. It takes having an HR system that's going to, have all of the proper demographic information about those employees. It takes all those pieces, working together to get an accurate paycheck out at the end of the day. So this is something we've shown before, but we want to move towards is this other model kind of showing this is all that an HCM maybe could be said to do, more than just those two things we'd listed before. And I want to try and just show all the different things, because not all these do we have today. So demographic data management is maybe the first one of those things, kind of done in the AS400 today. Position management, not really a thing that we have a solution for at all. Payroll done in the AS400. Applicant tracking, not so much at all. Timekeeping is currently transitioning to be an SWC tool. So that's UKG, that's the blue one. And then the other two, we don't really have anything as solutions for today. So when we're talking about, rolling out an HCM system down the road, it's a little hard to compare that to today in terms of costs and labor that goes into maintaining that, just because it's going to be so much more than we currently have today. And I want to just, turn the mic over to Mike and Mike conveniently to talk about, what this actually looks like in their workflows.
Yeah, I really can't stress enough just the manual nature of payroll as we're transitioning to UKG and digital timekeeping. So Telestaff for public safety and Kronos for the rest of the Syracuse workforce. It's very much so organized chaos. It's every 2 weeks, every week, are we going to get payroll out on time? There's a number of corrections that need to be every week for every biweekly payroll. So that's police, you're talking 400 plus officers, fire 350 plus. We're a 2,000 person organization, collecting paper timesheets from every employee, given we have 2 retirees working currently in payroll and then a staff of 3. and then, you know, we tag in some IT support to make sure we get it through. It's just a very convoluted process with what our current state is. And then I think, Mike, you were going to touch upon some demographic.
Yeah, so the other thing that's really important for any modern HR department or organization in general is the access of usable demographic data. Currently, our data is incomplete at best. It's isolated from the rest of our information. We can't easily move it back and forth between systems to do reporting. The other systems aren't even existent. So, you know, if we want to run a report, oftentimes it's in a very difficult to use format for us. So what we find is that, you know, not being able to feed into other systems, not being able to communicate effectively between them, leaves us at a loss when we have important reporting that we need to do. You know, for instance, trying to figure out employment status for individuals who are in the country on an authorization program. We don't have anything that's currently built into the AS400 system to allow us to track that efficiently. So it's something that we have to manually track, whereas with a modern system like UKG, that's going to be part of the built system, and it's going to give us that capability to report out on those things quickly.
And can I pause really quickly now? I know you kind of gave the disclaimer, wait till the end for any questions. But those of us that have been around for a little while have had the opportunity to see different versions, digest, understand, comprehend, and I actually feel like I kind of know what you're talking about now. I'd like to turn it over to Councilors Moore and Ehrenreich to see if they have anything that they need clarified at this point before we even keep going, because I know you just threw a lot of information at them, and not to put you on the spot, but...
I don't have any questions. I actually met with them just
Okay.
before we came to the meeting. so-
Wonderful.
I have what feels like an incredibly basic question. Why doesn't Paychex do this?
We've looked at, I mean, so we'll get touch upon that a little bit later. We have looked at third-party processors. I think given our timekeeping situation and the paper manual processes, it just wasn't possible at that time. That's maybe something we could explore again. I was looking at
And I'm not
ADP.
advocating for any particular
Yeah.
process. It's just like this is a form built for municipalities system, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So I just wanted to know, like, obviously we are a municipality, it's 2,000 employees, but if other companies that go up through Fortune 500 companies, et cetera, have, you know, a much more generic or conventional system,
Yeah.
is that out of the range of possible? And again, I don't need to, if we've already done bidding and stuff like that, I'm not asking for a redo. I'm just trying to catch me up.
Yeah, no, I mean, we did look at ADP as far as being a third-party processor for payroll. I don't think it ever got farther than just an introductory conversation. I know we did evaluate them. I think some of the costs per employees was reaching, you know, the tens of thousands monthly. So that's not an annual cost. So I think it, at the time, it made sense to keep it in-house. That's not to say we can't reevaluate that. But we did look at a third-party processor, and I think one of them was like the checks were going to be mailed out of Cleveland, Ohio, which, you know, a lot of our employees want to be able to come to a window and grab a check or get their check that same day. So that just seemed at the time not like the best avenue, but we did look at that third-party, specifically ADP and Paychex. And just to touch upon some of the manual natures as well that I think Michael was talking about with, you have to be a subject matter expert on. We have 9 contracts, they're very complex, so it's not just, okay, this person's moving into a new role, increase their salary $5,000. If they're changing unions, their health insurance deduction changes, their dental insurance deduction changes, you know, retirement tiers need to follow them with that. So it's not just, oh, increase this number from 50,000 to 55,000. There's a lot of other changes that go into that as well. With the current manual nature of AS400, any of these contractual increases, we call secondary jobs, which if you don't work in payroll, you think secondary job, where are you working outside of the city? Like, no, this is how we add on those incentives like uniform allowance or for police, the sick time buyback, that's a contractual obligation. The over the cap bonus, the off wheel bonus, like these are very complex things that I still have trouble wrapping my head around. That, you know, we're forcing payroll clerks, every single person in HR to know every single specific detail out of these contracts. that ideally in a new system could be automated. Like, you know, if you're changing this bargaining unit for an employee, their deductions are going to update automatically when you make that change. So I think that's, you know, part of the reasons of just building in these efficiencies to get us out from, we're so busy compiling information just to make the change or, you know, to produce this deliverable, doesn't make sense. Like, you know, we issued a check for a water worker once for $10,000. Like, that doesn't make sense. But, you know, we got it recouped. But
What time does it take you to complete a full payroll?
Monday, so we have a weekly payroll that's paid on Fridays. Really, payrolls, you know, heads down Monday, Tuesdays. Usually that bleeds into Wednesday, and then every other 2 weeks, the biweekly payroll process is starting today. So, I mean, we rely on departmental aides to kind of compile employee timesheets. You know, as this is, you know, our older paper-based process. This will change as we move into UKG, but timesheets were due from the departments today at noon, and then that's when payroll goes to work on the biweekly payroll. And one of the wins we'll detail later in the slideshow. As far as the biweekly payroll is processed the Friday prior to payment date, which yeah, I'll touch upon that a little bit more in the presentation. But I think it's now the Josh show for the next couple slides here.
So before you move forward, you mentioned that employees can make their own changes in this new system.
Yeah.
So we'll train people to do that, right?
Oh, certainly, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, that'd be
because-
part of the change management, yep.
Okay.
So what this slide is trying to illustrate for you is basically if Oracle had gone live a year ago, this is, you know, the green would have been what Oracle was doing, and the blue, the one thing that's in blue would be the timekeeping system we're rolling out right now. It's also trying to show, you know, there's kind of a sequential order you should go in when you're rolling these things out. It kind of starts on the, you know, bottom left-hand side. You want to make sure you have a good base of data that you're working with to build out the rest of it. So you want to make sure you understand, you know, your bargaining units, your employees, you know, their longevity with the city, all that stuff. Position management, again, you want to have like a good org chart structure of who reports to whom, and, you know, payroll that clicks in from there to process those things with the help of timekeeping that comes in. So what I'm trying to show here is that when Oracle didn't go live, we got very much kind of stranded in that timekeeping region where we don't have all those other pieces working together in the way that they should be today. So obviously, you know, there's benefit to pressing forward with what we're doing with timekeeping today, but the reason why it might have taken a lot longer than people have thought, you know, over the year and a half that I've been working on this is that, again, we're kind of doing this, you know, in spite of all these other things working against us, in spite of not having, you know, timely information making its way into that system. So just kind of highlighting that so you can, you know, understand why that order matters so much and why it matters for us to continue on this front of getting those pieces plugged in.
So following up on the 7 categories right there, what can we check off out of that is done?
So what exists today, I guess if you go back one slide, Hannah. So what's done today is kind of hard to define because we have somewhat of an answer for those 2 that are in gold today. Timekeeping is the one that's in progress right now, and we'll talk on our next slide about how much progress we've made on that front. But what we're looking to move toward would be a replacement of all the other boxes. So really the one that we have done, so to speak, would be, you know, what we've got of timekeeping, which we'll talk about soon. Not fully done, but we've made a lot of good progress on. And I think the point here kind of being, if you go to the next one again, the challenges that we're running into in terms of finishing off timekeeping today is kind of why we're in front of council asking that we would like to continue moving forward with the HCM portion, because without those pieces, it's going to make the rest of this, it's going to make this inch turn into a mile as far as finishing the rest of this project. So
Last one, so I can be quiet. Commissioner, how much have we spent so far on the timekeeping?
That is in one of the appendices. So can we, if we go to the, once we wrap up the presentation, I can't quote the numbers right now. But yeah, no, we do have, we have all those numbers in the appendices here, so we can touch upon that a little bit later.
So just recapping kind of what we've accomplished over this last year. We'll start off with where timekeeping is at, to your question, Counselor. Overall, across the board, we're at 70% live with digital timekeeping. This is including telestaff for public safety and SWC in a number of different departments. So water being fully live, parks being very close to fully live, and kind of a handful of other divisions across the city. What I would want to, draw your attention to on the SWC pie chart there is that in addition to the 40% that's live, we have another substantial portion that is what we're calling ready, which basically means they're ready to go live at any time. And really the holdup here for those groups is that, the last thing we want to do is push people to being live with the system if we don't have the bandwidth in place to support them if something goes wrong. So we wouldn't want to push, 500 people live on this if we can only, be on call to answer questions for 100 of them. So we're kind of, phasing that in over time, and I think we've got about, 250 or so is about the most we've ever done in 1 month. So we expect that to kind of, get chipped away as February and March move on. But a lot of them are currently using it in parallel with paper, and the numbers have shown that they're ready to go live with it at any time.
So telestaff is for scheduling. We're using it for payroll. It is not timekeeping, to be clear, but we're using it that way. Why is that? And is there a opportunity to shift that? Is there desire to change that in the future?
I think with UKG Pro, that would be the intention. I know police has an army of individuals working on telestaff so that matches their actual schedule worked. So I agree that it is a scheduling software and we are using it to pay officers. But I mean, with our current state, these are the cards we were dealt. And I mean, I think part of the reason why we're going with Mosaic and looking at UKG Pro, we're under the same umbrella now. Like the UKG, SWC, UKG telestaff is going to talk well with UKG Pro. We moved forward with Oracle, prior contractor told us, yes, no problem that you have these two different software providers. We will be able to integrate them, no problem. Well, that wasn't the case. It's, if you have an Android phone and you're trying to use an iPhone charger, like that's not going to work, no matter how much, but a consultant will tell you they can get it to work. And unfortunately, that's how we move forward with the Oracle Fusion product. Honestly, we probably never should have moved forward with that. And I think some of the experiences at the school district and the $900,000 in salaries they're adding to get that operational, we would have been going along that same path. So I think we did not go live with Oracle, reevaluated what makes the most sense, given our limited resources in IT, HR, payroll, everywhere. Software as a surface, making sure we're not responsible for the maintenance. I'm not sure if the deputy mayor's here, but I was going to use a car analogy. We're leasing.
What's the car analogy? Oh, we're about to get it? Okay.
We're leasing a car as opposed to building a car. Oracle is building the car, and the engine's over there, the taillights are over there and whatnot, and we were expected to keep that car running. Whereas with UKG Pro, we're leasing the software. So as far as a lot of those maintenance costs, and it is a big dollar amount, but we're much more confident in making sure we're going to be able to, do all of our personnel and payroll activities with them as a partner.
To get back to your specific question, Counselor, the plan would be to make those softwares connect so that, again, the scheduling is still happening from a telestaff perspective to kind of wrap that apparatus around very advanced scheduling needs they have to work around the clock to handle public safety, but to still have, things like what accruals any, sworn officer has access to would be coming through the correct system rather than uploaded by paper into telestaff system, which is what it is today. All right, so we can move on to the next slide. So now I want to take a minute to just talk about some of these ongoing challenges we're going to have. So I want to highlight the fact that even once we're done rolling out SWC, there's still going to be issues. It's not all just going to take care of itself. One of those is just the fact of it being an aging software. So some things to point out there. Right now, we're paying kind of multiple times for different licenses. So a future version will pay once for a license, and that license will allow us to do everything. Right now, we're paying for some licenses to use clocks, and if we want that employee to also use a computer, that's another license, and if we want them to have payroll done through this, that's another license, and so again, kind of duplicative in that sense. We also just don't have certain functionality like being able to use your mobile phone to punch, and that would simplify life for a lot of employees who maybe have to respond directly to an emergency, a water main breaks and they've got to go directly out to the site. They can just do that on their phone on their way there. So functionality, a lot of improvements there. Another thing to point out is that right now we're very kind of enmeshed with the county's servers to make all this happen. That's kind of how this all got started in the first place. And that means that to connect to these tools, we've got to connect first to the city's network, and then the city's got to kind of patch us through to the county. It just adds one more layer where things go wrong every single time. That goes for kind of the computers that we've got to keep going, as well as for the clocks that are around the city. And you know, every time the power goes out at a various community center, we might have to then get the county on the phone to get it plugged back in to their network. So just another kind of point where things can break. And the last one here, which I think is the most important, is the lack of the HCM, you know, which is again why we're in front of you today. So just some issues to point out here is that, you know, for example, when new employees are hired, they're not going to make their way into SWC for sometimes a couple of weeks, or like let's say someone transfers from one department to another, that's not going to be reflected there on time. And that's a problem when you're a manager who's still seeing that employee, or you're the new manager who's not seeing that employee. Or a new employee, how are you supposed to keep your time? You know, we're going to be asking these managers then to do most of their employees in a system and the rest of them on paper. That just makes their life harder for the time being. Also, you know, when people go to request paid time off, like sick time, vacation time, their balances are often out of date because, again, we're kind of patching this back and forth between the AS400 and SWC. So that lag just, you know, creates more issues for users. And finally, we don't have, you know, a good, you know, handle on our org chart today, because when those changes are happening, when a new employee is hired or a position is, you know, maybe moved from a person is moved from one position to another, we kind of are having to track that on a person by person basis, and those changes sometimes take a long time to trickle through. So all this to say, even when we finish SWC, we're going to continue having these challenges until we get that foundation in place, and that's the HCM. That's why we're looking to continue moving forward right now, even if we haven't finished SWC yet.
So one of the accomplishments we had in 2025 was moving the biweekly payroll period from a Wednesday to a Tuesday, from a Sunday to a Saturday. So really, the issue there was because of the timing of our weekly payroll and system limitations with AS400. We were generating, you know, you get paid on a Thursday for a biweekly employee. We were generating that payroll the previous Friday, and that included pay for the Mondays and Tuesdays of that week. So, you know, I'm never scheduling a sick day in advance. I don't know who is, but you could have had, you know, if you were out on sick time, if you wanted to take a sick day on Tuesday, but payroll was already processed last Friday, then, you know, that's you're going to show you have a larger sick bank balance that's not going to show up until the following payroll period. So just with the inherent nature of, you know, paying payroll before the period ends, you have these changes that happened on Monday and Tuesday that weren't reflected for maybe, you know, a pay period or two, which goes into some of the issues that Josh just listed as far as accrual management. So getting that on a Sunday to Saturday, so now we're on a lag that you are getting paid a week and a half after the payroll period ends, which was one of the other reasons why, you know, approving time cards in Kronos or SWC for a biweekly employee, you would have to approve your time Friday prior to the pay period ending. What's showing up for Monday and Tuesday the following week? Nothing. You haven't worked those hours yet. So getting this payroll, the biweekly payroll period to an arrears state allows us to actually use SWC functionally for biweekly employees. So that we consider that a big win for us in 2025.
And then with regard to business process mapping, we've taken a lot of time right now in the prep to make sure that we understand how we're currently performing some of our functions and what our ideal state for performing those same functions will be under a modern system. So we understand and we're ready for the full migration of our systems to make sure that the process is as successful as possible. So we're really understanding how we do things and how we need to do them to get to where we want to be.
And then, you know, on the bottom point there, the HCM solution. So coming into last year, we had a decision on our hands of, are we going to try and fix what state Oracle was in and go live with that product? It took us, you know, a good chunk of time evaluating our options there to make sure it wasn't, you know, maybe the faster and the smoother path forward to just invest in getting it finished. You know, over the course of that conversation, we kind of aligned that the better way to go forward here would be to opt for a different model, one that's more software as a service, where it's really going to be kind of hosted and maintained by a vendor, in this case UKG, who's, again, you know, if we're leasing the car, they're going to be responsible for most of the upkeep of that car. except for the few things that, we have to do, like a contract changes. We're going to be responsible for changing the things when the contract changes, but it's going to be, on their servers. We're not going to have to be running that ourselves. So, it took a good long while to figure out, did we want to continue with Oracle? And then we took some time to figure out what option made the most sense going forward from there. Settled on UKG, it was a very competitive price point considering the other options. It also, the biggest reason for this probably was that we already have had success with Telestaff and with SWC. So this is keeping that functionality under the same roof, which just simplifies, maintenance of all of them. It makes sure that the tools of one system are going to line up with the tools of the other system, rather than having to, again, integrate those things. So from there, once we had aligned on UKG, go back a slide, sorry. Once we had aligned on UKG, then we had issued an RFP for implementation services, and through a good, I think, couple of months of reviewing some solid options, and with the input of council, we had all aligned on Mosaic Consulting Group as being the most qualified by far of the options that we received. So now you can go ahead. So now, just kind of coming back to this is our goal going forward, is that we want to have all these roles, played by the exact same platform. Again, it's just going to simplify our maintenance going down the road. So that's that.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, this is our first time hearing about UKG, correct?
No.
In our last meeting, we talked about.
So whenever we said, so Syracuse Workforce Central, that's a software of UKG. So UKG is just the parent company. But so, UKG, we've started this 3 or 4 years ago now with Telestaff rollout initially, and then SWC rollout. So, right now.
But in terms of the whole HCM package, yes, it's been on the agenda linked to Mosaic, but in terms of a formal
The
presentation.
HCM,
Yeah.
So you use Chronos to punch in and UKG with the retention of that punch in?
Yeah, yeah. So, we will continue with SWC rollout. I think we've made a lot of progress. It is a big culture change. Timesheets for some of our workforce, unfortunately, felt like they were optional. There are many times that we don't get timesheets from employees for months, which delays, if this employee leaves the city, it delays their payout. There's been instances of a DocuSign got to us late and we paid an employee for a couple payroll periods after they left the city. Which, we do our best to try to recoup those payments, but with our current manual processes and the different systems we're working in, you have to, type the same thing in 3 or 4 different places where, with a streamlined approach, that would help those issues. But I think the plan is for us to continue rolling it out. SWC, as it today, it will be an end of life at the end of next March, 2027. That doesn't mean, April 1st, 2027, we can't use this product anymore. That just means UKG will stop supporting updates. So if we reach out to them and say, hey, we have this issue on April 1st, 2027, they're going to tell us you're out of luck. And then, did you want to touch upon the design or?
Point 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So, so we kind of see these things as being, in parallel with each other. For one thing, we don't want to stop our current progress with SWC, but at the same time, we don't want to make our future HCM build out contingent on finishing with phase 1 when we know the problems we're facing right now in that system. So again, just highlighting that those same pain points we have today are going to continue throughout our rollout, even once it's live. We're going to have those same issues. And delaying this work right now until we're done with SWC is just going to set us further behind on what is also very important work of modernizing our other processes.
All right. Questions? Do we want to go to to Councilor Jones?
I want to go back to the bandwidth question you talked about earlier. Does that mean, when you talk about bandwidth, is that the staff, or is it what was that?
Go to the org chart.
It was connected to SWC and the chart that you had, and then
Was added on the additional modules and not having the bandwidth or
Yeah.
capacity to
What-
take on the additional staff that would then move over to the ready. the ready.
Right.
Yeah, so was, is that the staff within, inside here, or is it the external bandwidth?
Inside, internal
that you're talking
staff.
about? So what would that look like in terms of the number?
The number of people internally working
Right,
on this project.
To be able to make you feel like there's enough bandwidth to be able to internally handle that.
So we'll go to go back one slide. So this is our current, our most recent meeting of the minds about how best to structure and staff this project. So you can kind of see on the left-hand side, we just wanted to acknowledge, there's a lot of very real functions that people are playing. Finance department is processing payroll every week. HR is doing other HR functions every week. But in addition to that, there's a very real, need on the project to keep work moving forward. So this chart is kind of showing how there's both of those things working together to get this project moving forward. To your point, Counselor, I think the capacity kind of comes from both of those. Sources. So I would say, in total, we've got something like, 10 total employees maybe that are actively working on this from a week-to-week basis in different capacities. So, some people who are, spend a lot of their time working in payroll, most of their time is going towards just processing payroll. But then as we need them in the project, we'll pull them in. Versus, myself and a number of other people, we're full-time working on rolling this out. And I'd say that group is probably in the 5 to 6 range of full-time dedicated to this project right now.
Are they all in, the 6 that you were saying, are they all hired, or that potentially adding on to the 10 that you already have?
That's a good question. I'm saying 6 right now are actively hired and working on it.
Okay.
But I think there might be, some need. I guess what I would be saying is, if you look on that diagram on the UKG software team bubble. Okay, let me try and explain it then. Basically, as we try and roll out a new software, there's going to be additional need for support, like you're saying. And so I think at that time, we're going to need to bring in more internally who are, on staff full-time just to support that part of the project.
Potential of 4 more?
I would say potential 1 to 2 more
One to
is
two
probably
more,
the most
okay.
that we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think on that project team, you will have individuals kind of tap in and tap out. Some people will be wearing multiple hats, kind of depending on where we are. And as Josh mentioned, it's not going to be the payroll supervisor's job 40 hours a week to do this. That's going to ebb and flow as far as, we're getting to the payroll build out. That's going to be a busier couple of weeks or a couple of months for our payroll team on top of, processing payroll. But then, that will slow down, when they're focused more on some of the HR processes or the HR build out.
And I think there's an important point to remember that as this project gets off the ground and is fully implemented, there's going to be a time savings on the back end of people having to do less manual work that'll more than account for the extra manpower that might come on in the beginning, or the person power to come in the beginning to do some of the implementation.
I think what really needs to be asked is, why is it different now? And what I'll tell you is that you've done a great job of laying out the needs and the benefits. What I'll also tell you is that 2 years ago, the first meeting that I took was with Frank, and he gave me essentially this entire presentation, a little bit different, but pretty much outlined the needs and the benefits if we are able to get there. 2 years later, we're still having the conversation, looking for another $1 million in money for implementation services and a $750 recurring. Why will it be different now than it was in the past?
The slide before would speak to that, and I think, Mike, you're going to take that one.
So some of the things that we've done have been to reassess the structure and the bandwidth we had. So going back to the conversation that we just had, really looking at who the key players were, who the people who had to be in the room were, wasn't always the right mix. Solidifying some of the relationships between HR and API to make sure that we've reduced some of the project silos. I'm going to throw myself in there that I think I've been much more active than my predecessor in building those relationships, working out and making sure that I'm working with Josh, making sure that I'm getting engaged with payroll so we can get some of these things moving forward. As mentioned before, we have invested a lot of time in understanding how it is that we do things now and how we need to do them to be better at what we're doing and better for our constituents. We've really done a lot of work to ensure that our internal capacity is set up. I think previously the work started, it wasn't necessarily focused, it wasn't necessarily as thought out as it should have been. The strategy wasn't as thorough. We've done a better job this time around with establishing that strategy and making sure that we have, a working plan to keep us in lockstep. We did a much better job choosing who our software provider is going to be. UKG truly is the right solution for the city of Syracuse and its employees. Speaking to an individual who works with the school district today, on a personal level, she stated just how horrible it's been for them to work with Oracle, and that wasn't the right software solution. Big name, big reputation, not a good fit. And also making sure that we're doing things in the right order. That gets back to the strategy. That gets back to us being more planful in what we're doing and how we're doing it. And then identifying the right partner. Mosaic, there was a lot of conversation, there was a lot of research. We really had conversations about whether or not they were the right team to get us to where we needed to be. And I think one thing that's not on this list that, I think I'm going to kind of go rogue and throw in there, we're sick of it. We are so tired of dealing with AS400 and processing paperwork like we're still running the Erie Canal. We're a modern city. We're one of the biggest cities in one of the most populous states in the United States. And a major part of our office equipment is a pen. We're done. We're over it.
This is the output from the AS400.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the print, with the sidebar type of stuff here since I was 7 years old before I came back to the city.
Matrix printers, a real classic.
Yeah. So,
So I have a question. Yep, sure. It sounds like the process we have now is very people-heavy. Once this is all completed, do we see us hiring less people to do these processes? And since we're going to be putting money out every year for the system upkeep, are we going to have less staff in City Hall to be doing what we're doing now?
I would want to turn that over to the gentleman sitting next to me, but I think what I've heard them say over and over again is not that we need less staff, but that there's a much better purpose for those staff members and what they could be doing with their time than what they're currently spending that time on. So, doing more, I'll let them elaborate on that.
As the CFO, I don't think, you're not looking at laying anyone off. Maybe natural attrition, but I think with our current systems, there's a lot of things that we should be doing today that we aren't, like applicant tracking. Maybe this posted, how are we tracking that? Manual spreadsheets, maybe we posted it to Indeed, maybe we posted it at LinkedIn. This would give us a centralized database of what's going on. Letting, automated, you apply to a job, you get an automated email back letting you know, hey, we received your application, we're looking at it. We're not doing that today. Maybe you get a phone call 2 or 3 weeks. So I don't know, it's basically reducing staff immediately, maybe long-term, but I don't think the goal would be to reducing staff. And then, as Josh just alluded to, doing some of those more value-add activities. It takes us so much time to compile the information just to get payroll out. We can't, do this week over week. Let's look at water payroll. Why is it up, 20%? Oh, we know we had these water main breaks. There's gonna be more overtime this week. We're not doing any of that type of analysis today. We're just getting the checks out. So again, I think it's some of those more value-added, better controls that we're not doing today with our current processes, if that answers your question.
Yep, that does. Thank you.
That's a great vision for the future, but we also have to build those processes as well, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I had earlier, talking about additional data, but what are we thinking about from a management perspective, from a process perspective, to be able to, analyze, look at with, intentionality. But
Could you rephrase that?
I don't know, more of a statement than a question, I think, just amusing, pondering. We're talking about something that needs to get built. The internal processes are, I talk about software as a tool, not a solution, right? And It's all about, our people and our processes and, what we're moving to.
Yeah.
But I think that the first two are equally as important, if not more important, than whatever product
Those people,
we end
process,
up.
technology, yep.
So while we master all this process, there will potentially, because there always are, a lot of hiccups in the way.
Yeah.
So what are the ones we're kind of foreseeing that could come up, and what are the solutions?
I mean, I think internal capacity is always going to be an issue. I mean, we obviously have limited resources, but as Mike mentioned, I think we're going into this project eyes wide open. I think initially when we, air quotes, went live with SWC back in January 2023, we had one full-time digital services person working on it. The director of digital services at the time maybe put 4 to 8 hours into it a week. I know I was attending 6 hours worth of meetings, and then the payroll team was also attending meetings. We didn't really have an HR representative in the room, which we have very complex contracts. So, we went live. We didn't have a single employee in the system, and we had 7 or 8 personas, which were basically, local 400 employees, CSEA employees. So we went live without even knowing what we were going live with. So I think we have built some internal expertise. I think going through the RFP process, we know what we're getting with Mosaic, whereas I think the previous contractor, third party, we utilized with a lot of waiver of competitive bids that, you go through these contracts, you don't know it's very vague language as far as what are the deliverables. So I think, Mosaic is the right partner for us. We did do interviews with multiple vendors. Mosaic, I think also, so the county, they use SWC, or, they use Kronos as well. They don't use UKG for payroll processing, but they will have to move their Kronos to the cloud. My understanding is they're also looking at Mosaic as an implementation partner to help with that transition. So I think, not that the county, our little big brother over there, I think, they're realizing that Mosaic's the right vendor for them as well.
So my question, before I said it before, I'm very familiar with Dayforce, and so all of the modules per se that you had there I've utilized the majority of them, and I think it would be a great asset. To your statement, I'm sick of seeing y'all. But my main question is, one, I think that as far as staff capacity, I don't see us more or less laying people off. I think there will be or not laying people off, but cycling them. Mm-hmm. I think there will be more individuals needed in the IT department once we do this. But my question, if you go back to the module part of it, that if we are not able to fund you at the 100% need, then say it's half, which would you get?
I can speak for the first thing I would chop off is performance management, probably. But I think demographic, that's a must. Payroll's a must. Timekeeping's a must. Position management, in my opinion, is a must. Employee self-service, I think that just comes with it. But I think employee self-service is a nice to have.
I think employee self-service is very important. I think that employees being able to go into the system, see, where their mistake might be, or where something didn't calculate, and bringing that to someone's attention is very important, versus them having a piece of paper that's been gone for 2 weeks when they can look at it at that hour.
And if you're changing your banking relationship, you updating your own direct deposit information. We get phishing emails every single week in payroll from different individuals saying, "Hey, change my direct deposit information." Every single week.
Yeah, you can see the anytime when individuals are taking tests that they have to take, or updated what is it, like sexual harassment stuff.
Exactly.
It's all in the system.
Yep.
So I think that part is very important.
One other thing I would add to that, as we were going through this process of exploring what a software like UKG could do for us, we already did kind of bear that in mind of what are the nice to haves that we don't really need at this point. And one of those, just to give you, an example, is they have functionality where, there's an AI assistant chatbot thing who can answer employee questions and probably do some of the work that HR is getting asked right now. That's one of those things we decided not to spend the money on for right now.
I want to talk no chatbots.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I would like to think, a lot of that work to kind of cut this down has already happened to this point to where most of this is stuff that we're going to need for this to actually work going forward.
Is there a built-in component that would allow someone to get their W-2 form put right into the system, so you guys don't have to be mailing those all out?
Yep, that's all in there.
That's good.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
I was not here for the previous round of this, but I just, on a compliance perspective, want to know that your contract has built-in benchmarks this time.
Yep.
Yes? And those will be followed before we disperse funds, et cetera?
I think that once this legislation would be to get passed, that would be our next step, is working out that contract, and that's exactly the top of mind for us, is to make sure that we're not entering into a lot of time was spent on this, and so we're gonna pay out a whole bunch towards that, right?
I want to look at, because I want to look at recruitment and application tracking. And again, go back to how it was previously done. Before all this craziness, this body at some point was promised that application tracking and recruitment was something that,
We were promised it as well.
right.
Yeah.
It was something that was coming. And so I guess that leaves me to ask a question, that without that in place, what are you using to recruit as well as onboarding process? Is it all paper? Today?
It is all paper. And unfortunately, the truth right now is we are at an even greater disadvantage than we typically are with our recruiting efforts, because we've lost access to the full suite of Indeed's services. So we can post about 3 jobs a month. Anything beyond that, they're charging us a lot of money for, and we just don't have that right now. So what the applicant tracking system is going to bring us, not only is it going to allow us to more accurately track all the applications, be able to efficiently and frankly more personally respond to applicants and let them know where they are in the process at any point in time, it's also going to allow us to introduce a concierge onboarding process. That right now, all of onboarding is manual. You're sitting in a room, we're going over paperwork with you. I know some of you have recently done this. With this type of applicant tracking system, we can do some of that beforehand. We can integrate training into it at a certain point. We can do E-Verify, which is something that we truly would benefit from doing as a city. We can also be creating a very personal hand-holding service for our new employees. And anyone with experience in HR knows that that's something that leads to a higher level of retention. If you feel like you're being cared for as a candidate and a new employee, you're going to feel a higher affinity to your employer, and that's going to keep you around longer. With all of the things built into this system, that's going to allow us to really uplift and develop our employees in a way that we just haven't been able to now with our current paper and pen processes. Which, just to add on to, is going to allow the brain power we have in this city to do better work than processing paperwork right now. And it's going to keep them around longer, which is going to result in lower costs in the long run for employment.
So with all of that, when is the sunset for AS400? Is there a sunset?
That's a loaded question. We do a lot of things in AS400. I mean, the goal for AS400 being our payroll processing and employee demographic, I think July 1, 2027. I mean, this isn't a short-term project. I mean, this would be a 12 to 18-month long project. That said, I mean, we still do a lot of other things in AS400. We're still doing water billing in AS400. I think we're doing some type of property. I think assessment uses AS400 in some capacity. So when we say AS400, that's an umbrella term to me, as far as we do a lot of different things. But specifically the payroll and the HR demographic side, I think the goal would be July 1, 27. We are using AS400 also for timekeeping. So with the successful rollout of SWC, the timekeeping component, we're looking at decommissioning that as early as July 1, 2026.
2020s.
Six, yeah.
Wow.
But I mean, that's what we're rolling out right now, which is been ongoing.
What about, because I know that there are a couple of spaces where the city has partnered with the county, and partnered with the district. I think you mentioned that, part of the transition from Oracle is that city school district is sick of it too, right? Is it?
They seem to be struggling.
They're struggling. Okay, good word. Struggling, right? Not sick of it. Okay.
We've been watching this.
Right. So are they transitioning somewhere else? Is the direction the same as we are transitioned to UKG? Are they going the same direction? Is the county already there?
No, so the county, they have an older PeopleSoft HCM. So we piggyback off the county for our general ledger accounting and our accounts payable processing and some accounts receivable. We're doing those in our current instance of PeopleSoft, so that's maintained by the county. The county has invested quite a bit over the last couple of years to really build out their current PeopleSoft. So timekeeping, they're using Kronos for that, but they've really doubled down on an old PeopleSoft version. So they're processing payroll in that. I know they just invested a lot of money and time into project costing, which we're not even going to touch upon that in this presentation, but that would be the goal of, this cop's working overtime, associate that with this grant, automatically record it to a grant, so we're getting that reimbursed. Right now, any of these, anything with payroll is manual because of the AS400. So we're doing a lot of journal entries, moving salaries paid, to an operating budget, moving those to a grant, that ideally, with a better software, we can automate some of those processes. And ultimately result in better grant recoveries as well.
So I guess because of that answer, is there any city here that is in our position, or at least we are using as a model of updating, that have already updated their information and are up to date? Is there any city we are using?
I think the state of Indiana uses UKG Pro. Boulder, Colorado, I think uses UKG Pro.
Nothing in New York that you know of?
I don't think so, no, because I think it's Rochester School District. They're going through it with Oracle as well. They're, I think, in $30 million or no, more? Yeah. So I think, seeing what's happening across the thruway there, we realize Oracle is not the correct solution for us.
And my initial question about how much it have cost so far.
Yes. So
can
where do
we
we
look at
want to
that?
go? Got a few different bar graphs here. So, project started in 2020. As I think, council, you guys are very well aware, those that did balloon in 2024 because of some significant dollars to EY. So if you want to go to the next slide, this is going to be tough to read, but these are all the different contracts we had. So I think at the end of 2024, that's really when we ended the relationship with EY. And then, really buckled down of who can we use, who don't we need. So we've eliminated almost all of those contractors. I mean, we're still using Kronos, that's UKG. Kathleen's a former AS400 programmer for the city, so we're using, Kathleen LLC. ERP one's gone, EY's gone, Deer Island Bates gone, Cherry Road Technologies is gone. Central City Data's also, he's a former, API employee that he does some programming for us. And then, the last one, I won't mention that last one.
The next slide has more information too. The active ones being in yellow.
Oh, perfect. Thanks, Josh.
So my question is that it for that question?
No, so all these graphs are gray. Have we combined the number? What's the number?
7 point.
It's great, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking for a number.
About
I think it's 7.8.
7.8?
That's what. 5 years?
5 years.
5.5? 6?
Next slide. Or sorry, a few after that. That one. This one also shows, which platform was that money going towards, with, about half of that going towards SWC related expenses and about half of that going towards Oracle.
Okay. Can we have that too? Share that? Yeah. Did you email it to us?
You can email me a slide, but you can have that if you want.
I can keep it?
Souvenir.
Appreciate it, thank you. I'm all set, Counselor, thank you.
So, being that I'm of a certain age, I was just wondering if there's any reluctance throughout some of the departments and possibly senior staff to adjust to the new, transfer to IT-based versus paper-based.
It's culture change, but I mean, I think it's a long time coming.
Yeah.
I mean, for, an entity our size, $330+ million operating budget, the fact that we can't run an overtime listing every day on demand is inexcusable, in my opinion. Police and fire, between those two departments, I mean, we're talking almost $15 million in overtime, and we don't have decipherable reports to see what are we doing. And just the manual nature of you're typing in something from Telestaff into AS400. Then there's another instance of AS400 you're typing it into. It's a very old process. I mean, as far, and even me, I mean, like now Tuesdays by noon, you have to approve your timesheets. Like I put something on my calendar because you just, you're not used to doing it. But I mean, it's a culture change, and staff's gonna have to get in line. If you want to get paid, you got to submit your timesheet. Sorry.
No, not necessarily staff. I'm saying the department, the individuals running the departments. Are there any,
I think we've seen that definitely on the rollout of SWC so far. I think that usually when a department starts with it, it feels like a pretty big imposition on what they're used to doing. It feels like we've got to learn a whole new system and all the new ways of doing that.
Yes.
And I think that compliance to procedures and policies tends to feel that way. If you're actually having to go through those hoops, maybe in a closer way than you've had to do that in the past, it feels bad at the beginning. And I think over the course of that, there's kind of a natural trajectory that's looked like, where people get more comfortable with it over time. And as we've seen in water, where it was quite challenging to get that, really functioning at the beginning. But once it was functioning, it then took kind of a second effort to get employees back involved in using it in the way that they need to be using it. Nowadays, we've been live on it for 5 months now, and in that time, they've reported how much fewer times there's been where a paycheck has gone out wrong, and they've been glad about that over the times that they told me. Not to say that they're my biggest fan in the world, but they've been the first ones to admit that actually it has been working and it's been saving them time at the end of the day.
Specifically for water, I mean, they wouldn't have had visibility into their hours beforehand, so they wouldn't have known what are my overtime hours I'm gonna get paid on my next week's check, whereas they have that visibility now, which I think is a big win. I was gonna have one more comment. Workday, you had mentioned Workday. We did evaluate Workday. As far as, we would have had to switch our timekeeping to a Workday product as well, which from a change management perspective, everyone was used to, SWC and Chronos, so we didn't want to roll, we're going to decommission this and now we're going to roll out a new timekeeping to go along with Workday. So again, that was one of the softwares we did evaluate, and it just wasn't cost effective.
So if employees have a question on how to perform a certain task because they're learning, then this is transitioning to the new, where do they go to?
So typically we have kind of a sit down with the department to structure how we want that to actually look as we're working with them. Usually we'll sit down with the department head, with anybody in the department who's used to helping get payroll out into payroll department for processing. Then we meet with the managers and we meet with the employees, kind of in phases. And so any department that we've actually gone live with so far, we've gone live because we've done the initial conversations, we've done training with them, and then we've had, several weekly sessions where once a week we're getting together for a set number of hours and we're reviewing it together and practicing. And so then if they have, even after all that, they might still have questions, to your point, then there's other ways, help desk tickets that they can submit and get answered, or, we have office hour sessions. And we've gone to the pretty great lengths to make ourselves as available as possible, because again, now that they're live, we understand.
So the help desk takes how long to respond to an inquiry in something as important as this?
I think it depends on the type of inquiry, definitely, but if it's a department that we know is live with this, we would treat that obviously differently than a hypothetical question for a department who's not live, right? So if it's someone that's live, we're gonna get that fixed within the day, most cases.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, so we don't have a performance management module right now, and I think to Mike's point about just a more formal onboarding, there was a document for SWC training that we pushed out a few months ago to departments that at onboarding, that's one of the trainings. You have to do SWC training, you have to do sexual harassment training, and there are other specific trainings that are specific to your position. Those can also be offered right at onboarding, whereas right now it's really haphazard.
So training to use the system to be able to log in, whatever you need to log in. What's the question? I lost it. So the employees will have training for that, but then training never stops because then you have new people coming in all the time, and people can continue to go to these trainings if they wish. So I mean, how is this gonna? Are there like set trainings in days that they know they can go to, or how is this gonna happen?
That's a great question, and we realized that along the way because we realized, well, this is never going to stop if we keep doing it this way. So kind of our first solution there was that we've spent a lot of time building kind of an employee-facing website where there's videos and courses and things like that that someone could go through maybe at the time of onboarding. So like if they're hired into a managerial role, they might have to sit through a course that teaches them how to use it for that. And then, on top of that, we'd make ourselves available for office hours and other things as those questions come up.
And does this, will this allow, potentially, a year or two from now, and possibly the staff is growing, but this will allow for, work from home staff as well?
Sorry, can you rephrase that question?
Will this allow for work from home staff eventually? I mean,
Like, would they
maybe
be
not
able to
right away.
work from home utilizing this, or?
I'm sorry?
So, I mean, I don't think we have like a formal remote work policy. I don't know if there's any appetite to change that, but yeah, this would be available like on the web. So, I mean, if you wanted to log on at home on your laptop, I believe you could. Is that-
Okay.
Okay. So I think I'm misinterpreting your
So
question.
you wouldn't be paid, right? I mean, during your work hours, can you get credit for working at home on the app when you have to do your training?
So are we talking about specifically like?
Yeah, so say if you work at
trainings?
home, you got four videos to do. So you do it on your own time, or you do it punched in on company time?
I don't know if I have a good answer for that.
You know, because a lot of companies will do that.
So when the job that I did through New York State and we used Dayforce, it was on your time. Basically, if you came in that day, you might do it first thing when you got there and then finish your schedule doing regular work, or at some, like your lunch time, you do that
Are you saying like you
training or-
went home at 8 p.m., you did a training for an hour, are you gonna get paid for that training?
No.
Okay.
It was on staff time.
Okay.
It wasn't never at home.
Okay.
Yeah.
9 to 5.
Going down a little bit of a.
So,
I mean, not at home.
For sure.
It was not during. It was always during work hours.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
yeah, the position of the HR department in the city would be that you get paid for anything that you're asked to do as part of your job. So, yeah, the training would be paid.
Yeah, so I want to be cognizant of the time and people's potential childcare needs at the end of the day and other things happening. I'm going to finish it off with one final question and acknowledge that the item that we're talking about is a holdover item from either end of November, early December of last session. I hope you also understand why the council is hesitant to approve another major expenditure for a project that seems like we've been asked to do so a number of times already. What are you able to do and not do at this point without engagement with Mosaic?
In terms of rolling out UKG or any of
The
it?
project in general and kind of the evolution of our payroll.
The first answer that comes to mind for me for this would be that, there's probably a version of this that we could do it where we try and roll it out ourselves if we're doing the same platform. I don't think there's much, disagreement or discordance internally about this is the right path for us to move down. And there probably is a world where we could, implement UKG Pro. I just think that is a is a, 3 to 5 year conversation rather than a 1 year conversation. So that's my first answer, but I'm not sure if you have things to add.
Yeah, we don't have any UKG Pro experts on staff. I mean, like, these are the experts for a reason. I think we could continue to roll out timekeeping, then we get to end of life. Telestaff has some inherent issues that you've already mentioned. So being able to consolidate those and offer a better employee experience, I don't think, the city moves forward with UKG Pro without an implementation partner.
Last question. Would it be possible to maybe have a projected timeline on all of this at all?
We do have that. I do want to be cognizant
Where
of
is
time. We do have that in this slide deck, and we can make sure that you get that. I think that the expectation for this engagement would be that, by around June or July next year, we should have been able to finish all of this work. We don't
Okay.
expect it to go any longer than that.
Yeah, I would want to see, like, that is, I like that, so.
Oh,
send-
yeah, that one. There you go.
And I did want to return to your question earlier, Councilor Williams, about what's different this time. One thing that I would add on to what Mike had already said was that I think in the past, as you saw from those project spend charts, we've had a lot of different vendors in the room to help us with these things. And I think that at least what I saw coming into this kind of late in the game was that resulted in a lot of bits and pieces that didn't necessarily work that well together. I think that what we've done a lot, having those consultants out of the room, is we've spent a lot of time getting to know the processes ourselves and trying to understand exactly what our future vision is of how this works. And another piece of that being, we don't want to embark on digitizing a process if we haven't even examined the process yet, because there's a lot of wrong ways you can do something. And just because you're making it digital doesn't mean you're making it better. So that's what we've been trying to take our time to do over this last year is to, could you find the process mapping slide 29? There's a lot of work has gone into mapping out all kinds of different processes. So, we've got a few examples here, but trying to highlight really, particularly what are the pain points we're having with this today? Is it, system related? Is it just process related? Is it people related? And how do we mitigate those issues? So we've spent a lot of time doing that. And the hope would be that we have kind of a central kind of project leadership this time from the API department, which, in the past, I think, consultants have kind of preyed on the fact that we have a little bit of a split between, siloed way of doing things where they might go and ask HR a question and ask payroll a question, get two different answers. And I think our goal this time is we know ourselves well enough that we can all give them one answer. And we can make sure that we're building it right along the way. Those are just a couple things I would add on to that answer.
The font's too small for me as well.
Yeah, right?
And let me say, the intent was not that you could see our much better process. I just wanted to get you the sense that we've been doing this work, and if you want to get together and talk about those processes, we could do that in much greater detail than right here.
So who's taking ownership out of, because you talked about strategy, talent, and right software. Who have we designated internally that is actually leading this and taking ownership, as we know from the past?
Yeah, we actually have a ownership group.
It's a group? It's
It
not
is a
a
group. It consists of the
designated
deputy mayor,
Okay.
myself, the director of HR, our CFO, and the first deputy commissioner of finance.
That's who we can blame. when
Anything else,
it goes
Counselor?
south. Okay, all right.
I just want to clarify, this is completely cloud-based? What? Cloud-based?
Yes.
Yes. All right. With that, I thank everyone for their time, and we'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Thank you very much.